If I should stay, I would only be in your way. So I'll go, but I'll know I'll think of you every step of the way. And I will always love you, and I will always love you. You, my darling, you. Bittersweet memories, that is all I'm taking with me. So goodbye, please don't cry. We both know I'm not what you need, and I will always love you, and I will always love you. Life treats you kind, and I hope you have all you dreamed of, and I wish you joy and happiness, but above all this I wish you love. And I will always love you, and I will always love you, and I will always love you.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, friends, and family. My name is Djawdan. I'm Dr. Djawdan's eldest child and only daughter. On behalf of the family, I would like to welcome you to my father's celebration of life, and thank you so much for being here. Some housekeeping before I go on. The bathrooms are located outside the door, to the right, and then a sharp left turn. There are codes for the bathroom. The men's room and the ladies' room have two different codes. The codes are both by the table and by the door before you go outside. You will need those in order to get in there. Today's ceremony will be conducted both in Farsi and in English. Not all speakers speak both languages. When possible, translations will be provided. The agenda for today is as follows. The family will share their memories. My brothers and I will each tell you a bit about who my father was to us. His 3 grandsons, Sam, Cam, and Brian, and his granddaughter Shelby will also say a few words. Following the immediate family, we have a poem written by a former patient and a colleague. This poem will be read in Farsi by my aunt Sadiq Salamatian and in English by her granddaughter Gulzar Ijadi. We also have short videos in Farsi from my uncle Mustafa Djawdan and my cousin Susan Djawdan, and also by my aunt Sadiq Salamatian. We have a late addition, a letter in Farsi from a colleague of my dad's, which I will attempt at reading. We'll see how that goes. After that, we would like to invite members of the audience to speak if they wish. Please limit your comments to 5 minutes and provide your name to me as soon as possible so that I can call you to come up to the podium. An event like this takes many hands to put on. There have been a number of people that have been called upon for a variety of support. Thank you for being there for us. We would like to thank the Pars Center for the use of their space, Taste of Shamal for their catering and food services, Mr. Bardianikpur, aside from being an amazing human being, for being the best IT person anyone could have, our beautiful Gulzar Ijadi for lending her lovely voice to I Will Always Love You, and our spouses, Jeff Spradley, Afsane Mashalian, and Renee Djawdan for their relentless support during this difficult time. We could not have done it without you. Thank you. And now my attempt at reading Farsi. عصر خیر خانمان و آقایان محترم، دوستان عزیز و اعضای خانواده. نام من مینو جاودان سپرادلی است. من فرزند بزرگ دکتر جاودان و تنها دختر ایشان هستم. از طرف خانواده خوش آمد میگویم و از حضورتون در مراسم بزرگداشت زندگی پدرم صمیمانه سپاس می‌گذارم. مراسم امروز به 2 زبان فارسی و انگلیسی برگزار خواهد شد. همه سخنرانان به هر 2 زبان مسلح نیستند، اما در صورت امکان ترجمه ارائه خواهد شد. برنامه امروز به شرح زیر است. اعضای خانواده خاطرات خود را با شما در میان می‌گذارند و من و برادرانم هر کدام درباره پدرمان و اینکه او برای ما چه کسی بود صحبت خواهیم کرد. 4 نوه او سامسون، کامران، براین و شلبی نیز به چند کلمه خواهند گفت. پس از صحبت‌های خانواده، نامه از یک بیمار سابق پدر قرائت خواهد شد. این شعر به زبان فارسی توسط خالم صدیق سلامتیان و به زبان انگلیسی توسط نوه ایشان گلزار ایجادی خوانده خواهد شد. همچنین ویدیوهای کوتاهی به زبان فارسی داریم از عمویم مصطفی جاودان، دختر عمویم سوسن رهگذر و خاله عزیزم صدیق سلامتی. پس از این از حضار دعوت میکنم در سرود تمایل صحبت کنند. لطفاً سخنان خود را به 5 دقیقه محدود کنید و نام خود را هر چه زودتر به من اطلاع دهید تا بتوانم از شما برای آمدن به تریبیون دعوت کنم. برگزاری مراسمی مانند این نیازمند همکاری افراد بسیاری است. اما از همه کسانی که در بخش‌های مختلف ما را یاری کردند سپاسگزاریم. از مرکز پارس برای در اختیار گذاشتن فضا، از تیست آف شمال برای تهیه غذا و خدمات پذیرایی، از بردیانیپور که نه تنها انسانی فوق‌العاده است بلکه بهترین مسئول آیتی که میتوان داشت، از گلزار زیبایمان گلزار ایجادی برای اجرای دلنشنگ آهنگ I Will Always Love You و از همسرانمان جف اسپرادلی، افسانه مشعلیان و رنه جاودان برای حمایت بی‌وقفهشان در این دوران دشوار سپاسگزاریم. بی کمک شما این مراسم ممکن نبود. Now my brother, Obad Djawdan.
Dear friends, family members from near and far, those that are viewing live streaming of this event throughout North America, Europe, and Iran, we thank you for honoring us by your presence today for this special occasion. We're gathered to honor and celebrate the life of my father, Dr. Mehdi Djawdan, a pioneer, a healer, and a man of unwavering purpose. He was born November of 1930 in the historic city of Isfahan, Iran. My father came from a family of legacy. His father, my grandfather, was a successful, well-respected businessman in Isfahan. My grandfather lost his father when he was only 9 years old, and therefore was very much a self-made, successful businessman. Like many fathers of his generation, he hoped his sons will follow him in the footsteps and continue the family business. As a boy, my father spent hours in my grandfather's store trying to fit into the mold of his father wanted him to. I remember he told me a story once that he always had trouble using the abacus. For those that are younger and don't know what an abacus is, it's an old wooden frame with beads that slide up and down, and it's used for counting money. It's called chortek in Farsi. So it quickly became clear he didn't have the heart for business. What he lacked in business acumen, however, he made up for in curiosity and grit in what turned out to be medicine later in his life. Interestingly enough, in high school, he was a very average student, a B student if you would, unsure of his path and uncertain of his future. When he graduated high school in Isfahan, instead of venturing into business, he applied for medical school in Tehran. There were no textbooks back then, and only lecture notes to go off. And not much as far as labs in Tehran Medical School at that time. So before his first year of medical school was completed, one day a classmate, friend of his, introduced him to an advisor who claimed he could help students apply for German medical schools. He applied, of course, and within months he was accepted into University of Bonn, Germany. When he told his father he wanted to leave Iran to study medicine in Germany, his father was deeply opposed. But my dad's conviction never wavered. It was the editor of a local newspaper for whom my father occasionally wrote articles who finally persuaded my grandparents to let my dad go to Germany. And so, in February of 1952, with just 600 German marks in his pocket and a German Farsi dictionary in his bag, and no knowledge of German language, my father left Iran. There were no direct flights to Germany back then. He had to fly to Egypt first and then fly to Germany, a nation still recovering from World War II. He arrived in Stuttgart, Germany. I remember him telling us Stuttgart was so badly bombed by the Allies that after almost 7 years, they still had to walk to the train station on pathways dug through ruins. His first thought was, oh boy, what did I get myself into? Where is this place? He ultimately took a train to Bonn, where he where the head of university welcomed him. His classes didn't start until fall, so he rented a room from a former World War II German fighter pilot and spent his first summer painstakingly translating every word of his first year medical textbook and writing Farsi words next to every German word in the book. He had an amazing memory. To this day, at the age of almost 94, before he started showing signs of dementia, he could remember full names of his grade school classmates. He even took time for the first few months in Germany to memorize the entire German dictionary before his university classes started. Back then, learning Latin was a prerequisite for medical school, so he learned Latin also. His first semester in medical school was brutal. He needed to get used to the German way of teaching and simultaneously becoming fluent in understanding German. However, he fell passionately in love with medicine, and by the second year, he finished at the top of his class. This came from a student that was only an average student in high school. I think medical school years were probably his best years of his life. He talked about those years even when he was well into his 80s and 90s. By 1957, 5 years later, he had earned both his MD and his PhD, and followed by an additional 2 years of residency before returning to Iran to marry my mother. By 1960, he brought her with him back to Germany, first to Bochum for a surgical internship, and later Göttingen, where he studied neurosurgery. 6 years later, by 1966, he graduated from neurosurgery at top of his class. He was immediately offered a very good position in Germany, but instead, he purchased all the surgical tools he could buy, bought a car, and drove all the way across Europe back to Iran, ready to serve. When he arrived in Isfahan, there were no other neurosurgeons in Isfahan. The other doctors looked at him as if he was from another planet. He became the first neurosurgeon in Isfahan and only the third in the entire country. His first 3 years in Isfahan, he began to teach at Isfahan University without any pay, and simultaneously performed surgeries in multiple hospitals. He built a neurosurgery department at Reza Pahlavi, now Shariati Hospital, and performed thousands of brain and spinal surgeries throughout his long career. Patients came from across the country to see him. Many, especially from rural parts of the country, that couldn't afford care, but he never turned them away. He looked at it this way: either he did surgery on someone to save their life and not get paid, or the person dies. And every single time, he chose the first route. We had so many instances when we were in Iran of people showing up at our house to thank him, bringing him goats, chickens, eggs, whatever they could offer for the lives he had saved because they had no other way of payment. By 1976, 2 years before the Iran Revolution, he sensed the instability in the country and brought our family to the US. But a year later, he returned to Iran without us because he loved his country and he felt the weight of his duty. Then came the Iran-Iraq War. During that devastating time, a hospital in Isfahan was designated to treat wounded soldiers, many of whom were teenage boys. Buses arrived from the front, seats all removed, soldiers lying on the floors, many of them dead. My father would climb into these buses, check for signs of life, and triage the most critical neurosurgical cases. My dad didn't have us, his family, with him back then, so he sometimes worked for days without sleep, without going home. performing back-to-back brain and other surgeries to save lives during the war. By 1984, after 7 grueling years, he returned to the US briefly, and this time my mother returned with him to Iran. He continued his work for those decades more. In year 2000, he had trouble with his heart and came to the US for a heart surgery. After that, he split his time between the US and Iran. His final trip from Iran was in 2017, spending his last 7 years here in the US. He never stopped longing for his homeland. He never stopped yearning. He never stopped yearning to practice medicine. Even in the final years, barely able to see, hear, or walk, he would ask us to renew his passport so he could go back to Iran. He believed he still had more to do. I once asked him, "Dad, don't you want to retire?" He looked at me puzzled. "Retire?" he said. "My patients are waiting for me." My father was not just a man with mission. He was the mission. He came into this world with a singular purpose: to help patients. It wasn't just his profession, it was his calling, his identity, his reason for being. He felt he never did enough, but all of us here, and those thousands of families whose lives he saved, know the truth. He did more than enough, above and beyond. His legacy lives in every mother, father, child, and grandparent whose life he touched, in every operating room where life was spared, and in every village where hopes were restored. To my father, dying felt like an unfinished task. But to me, your son, your life was full, heroic, and deeply meaningful. It's been a great honor of my life to walk beside you, Dad, to learn from you, and to call you my father. May your soul rest in peace, Djawdan. Your work here is done, and it echoes through generations. دوستان عزیز، اعضای خانواده از دور نزدیک در کالیفرنیا، کانادا، اروپا، ایران و همینطور کسانی که در سراسر دنیا این مراسم را به صورت زنده تماشا می‌کنند، از حضور شما در این روز ویژه صمیمانه تبریک می‌گویم. اما تشکر هستم. ما امروز اینجا جمع شدیم تا زندگی پدرم دکتر مهدی جاودان، پیشگام، درمانگر و مردی با اراده استوار را گرامی بداریم و جشن بگیریم. پدرم در آبان سال 1930 میلادی در شهر تاریخی ایران به دنیا آمد. او از خانواده‌ای با ریشه و اعتبار بود. پدر بزرگم که پدر خودش را در 9 سالگی از دست داده بود، با تلاش فراوان خودش را بالا کشید و یک تاجر موفق و محترم در اصفهان تبدیل شد. مثل خیلی از پدران آن زمان آرزو داشت پسرش راه او را ادامه بدهد. پدرم از بچگی ساعات در مغازه پدرش وقت می‌گذراند تا مطابق خواسته او رفتار کند. یک بار برایم تعریف کرد که همیشه با چرکه مشکل داشت. همان وسیله چوبی قدیمی با مهره‌های روی میله‌هایی برای حساب و کتاب. همین باعث شد زود متوجه شد که در گروه تجارت ندارد. اما چیزی که در تجارت کم داشت با کنجکاوی و پشتکارش در پزشکی جبران کرد. در دبیرستان دانش آموز معمولی بود میشود گفت شاگردی بود با معدل 14-15 و مسیر آیندهش برایش نامعلوم بود. وقتی دبیرستان را در اصفهان تمام کرد، به جای رفتن دنبال تجارت وارد دانشگاه پزشکی تهران شد. آن زمان کتاب درسی وجود نداشت، فقط جزوه‌های کلاسی و آزمایشگاه‌ها هم خیلی محدود بودند. قبل از اینکه سال اولش را تمام کند، یکی از دانشجویان هم کلاسیانش او را با مشاوری آشنا کرد که میگفت میتواند برای پذیرش به دانشگاه‌های پزشکی در آلمان کمک کند. او درخواست داشت و ظرف چند ماه در دانشگاه بن آلمان پذیرفته شد. وقتی به پدر بزرگم گفت میخواهد برای تحصیل به آلمان برود، پدرش خیلی مخالف بود، اما اراده پدرم تغییر نکرد و نهایت سردبیر یکی از روزنامه‌های محلی که پدرم گاهی برایش مقاله می‌نوشت توانست پدر بزرگم را و مادر بزرگم را راضی کنم. اینطور بود که در فوریه سال 1952 میلادی با فقط 600 مارک آلمانی در جیب و یک فرهنگ لغت آلمانی فارسی در کیف و بدون دانستن زبان آلمانی ایران را ترک کرد. پرواز مستقیمی به آلمان نبود. او به مصر پرواز کرد و از آنجا به کشوری رفت که هنوز از جنگ جهانی دوم در حال بازسازی بود. وقتی به اشتوتگارت رسید، بعدها برایم تعریف میکرد که شهر آنقدر بمباران شده بود که بعد از 7 سال هنوز برای رسیدن به ایستگاه قطار باید از مسیرهای میان خرابه ها میگذشتند. اولین فکرش این بود خدایا من کجا آمدم؟ بعد با قطار به بن رفت. رئیس دانشگاه از اون استقبال کرد. چون کلاس‌هایش تا پاییز شروع نمی‌شد، اتاقی کوچک از یک خلبان سابق جنگ جهانی اجاره کرد و تمام تابستان را صرف ترجمه تک تک کلمات کتاب‌های پزشکیش کرد و کنار هر کلمه آلمانی معادل فارسی نوشت. حافظه‌اش فوق‌العاده بود. حتی تا 94 سالگی قبل از بروز آلزایمرز هنوز می‌توانست نام همه همکلاسی‌های دبستانش را به یاد بیاورد. او در همان چند ماه اول کل فرهنگ لغت آلمانی را حفظ کرد. از زمان یادگیری لاتین پیش نیاز پزشکی بود و لاتین را هم یاد گرفت. ترم اولش خیلی سخت بود. باید هر زمان هم به روش تدریس آلمانی عادت می‌کرد و همزمان آلمانی رو یاد می‌گرفت. اما خیلی زود عاشق پزشکی شد و تا سال دوم در صدر کلاس ایستاد. از کسی که در دبستان شاگرد متوسطی بود. به نظر من سالهای دانشجویی پزشکی پدرم بهترین سالهای زندگیش بود. حتی در دهه 80 و 90 عمرش از آن روزها مرتب حرف میزد. تا سال 1957 میلادی مدرک پزشکی و دکترای پژوهشیش را گرفت و بعد از 2 سال دوره تخصصی به ایران برگشت تا با مادرم ازدواج کند. در سال 1960 مادرم را با خود دوباره به آلمان برد. اول به بخوم برای کارآموزی جراحی و بعد به گوتینگن برای رشته جراحی مغز و اعصاب شگفت. در سال 1966 از رشته جراحی مغز و اعصاب فارغ التحصیل شد و در صدر کلاس بود. با اینکه پیشنهاد شغلی خیلی خوب در آلمان داشت، اما همه وسایل جراحی لازمه را خرید، ماشینی خرید و با آن تا ایران رانندگی کرد، آماده به خدمت. وقتی رسید به ایران یا اصفهان هیچ جراح مغز و اعصابی در اصفهان نبود. پزشکان دیگر با تعجب نگاهش می‌کردند. او اولین جراح مغز و اعصاب در اصفهان شد و سومین نفر در کل ایران. 3 سال اول کارش بدون حقوق در دانشگاه اصفهان تدریس می‌کرد، در حالی که در چنین بیمارستان عمل جراحی هم انجام می‌داد. او بخش جراحی مغز و اعصاب بیمارستان رضا پهلوی، امروز شریعتی، را تأسیس کرد و هزاران عمل جراحی مغز و نخاع انجام داد. بیماران از سرتاسر کشور پیش او می آمدند. خیلی ها به ویژه از روستاها که توان پرداخت نداشتند حضورش می آمدند. او اما هیچ کس را بر نمی گرداند. همیشه می گفت یا باید جراحی کنم و پول نگیرم یا بیمار می میرد و همیشه راه اول را انتخاب می کرد. بارها پیش آمده بود که مردم به خانه ما می آمدند در ایران تا از او تشکر کنند. با آوردن بز، مرغ، تخم مرغ، هر چه توانشان بود. تا سال 1976 میلادی، 2 سال قبل از انقلاب، بی‌ثباتی کشور را احساس کرد و خانواده‌مان را به آمریکا آورد. اما 1 سال بعد خودش تنها به ایران برگشت، چون عاشق میهنش بود، وظیفه‌اش را احساس می‌کرد و می‌خواست هر چه زودتر برگردد. بعد جنگ ایران و عراق شروع شد. در آن دوران سخت، بیمارستانی در اصفهان برای مجروحان جنگی تعیین شد. هر روز اتوبوس‌هایی از جبهه می‌آمدند، صندلی‌ها برداشته شده و سربازان روی کف افتاده. خیلی ها مرده بودند. پدرم وارد اتوبوس‌ها می‌شد، علائم حیات را بررسی می‌کرد و موارد حیاتی برای جراحی را انتخاب می‌کرد. بدون خانواده‌اش روزها بیوقفه کار می‌کرد. بدون خواب پشت سر هم عمل‌های مغز و جراحی‌های دیگری انجام می‌داد. در سال 1984 بعد از 7 سال برای مدت کوتاهی به آمریکا برگشت و این بار مادرم هم همراه او دوباره به ایران رفت. دهه‌های دیگر به خدمت ادامه داد. در سال 2000 مشکل قلبی پیدا کرد و برای عمل قلب آمریکا آمد. بعد از آن بین امریکا و ایران رفت آمد بود. آخرین سفرش از ایران در سال 2017 بود و 7 سال آخر عمرش را در آمریکا گذراند. هیچ وقت دلش از وطنش جدا نشد. هیچ وقت از طبابت دل نکند. حتی در سالهای آخر، در حالی که به سختی میتوانست ببیند و یا راه برود، از ما میخواست گذرنامه‌اش را تمدید کنیم تا برگردد. باور داشت هنوز کارهایی برای انجام دارد. یک بار از او پرسیدم بابا نمیخواهی بازنشست شوی؟ با تعجب نگاهم کرد و گفت بازنشستگی؟ بیماران منتظرم هستند. پدرم فقط مردی با مأموریت نبود، خودش مأموریت بود. با هدفی یگانه به دنیا آمد و آن کمک به بیماران بود. این نه تنها شغلش بود، بلکه رسالتش، هویتش و دلیل بودنش بود. همیشه فکر میکرد کافی انجام نداده، اما همه ما و هزاران خانواده‌ای که زندگیشان را نجات داد میدانیم حقیقت چیز دیگری است. او بیش از کافی انجام داد، فراتر از انتظار. میراث او در هر مادری، پدری، کودکی و سالمندی که زندگیشان را لمس کرد زنده است. در هر اتاق عملی که جان انسانی نجات یافت و در هر روستایی که امید زنده شد. برای پدرم مرگ مثل کار ناتمامی بود، اما برای من پسرش زندگیش پر قهرمانانه و بسیار معنادار بود. بزرگترین افتخار زندگیم این بود که در کنار در کنارش راه روم. از او یاد گرفتم و از او پدرم و از اینکه به پدرم را صدا می زدم متشکر بودم. روحت آرام بگیرد بابا، کارت در این دنیا تمام شد. پژواکش نسل‌ها ادامه خواهد داشت.
My father was a remarkable man. Like all human beings, he was complicated, contradictory, both ahead of his time and bound by his experiences. Today, you will hear much about him as a physician. I will remember him today as my father. I would like to talk about 3 of the many things he loved and 3 of his many lessons of life that have made me who I am today. Starting with the 3 things he loved, I'm going to focus on these 3 because they not only defined my father, but also shaped me as his daughter. My father's first love, as you have been hearing, was medicine, specifically neurosurgery. With his whole being, my father was Dr. Djawdan, MD, neurosurgeon. He loved what he did above everything else. His commitment to his profession was such that at the age of 94, he still wanted to practice medicine and to see patients. Never mind the fact that he was no longer able to do so physically. He missed who he was more than anything else. Number 2, following very closely to his first love, my mother was his second love. My father picked my mother for his wife during one of his trips to Iran. His mother, my grandmother, did not want him to marry a German girl, so every time he came home, she tried to introduce him to a nice Iranian girl. My Pedarjun told his mom that he would agree only if he was allowed to ask the girl of his choice if she wanted to be his wife. Those of you familiar with Iranian culture in the 1950s know that this was not done. The bride and groom did not see each other until after they were married, much less talk to each other. He actually asked my mother if she would be his wife, and after some negotiations between the 2 families, they were married and made it last for 65 years. Like all marriages, it was not always smiles and roses, but through it all, including some years of geographic separation, due to the revolution, he remained devoted and faithful. She was his everything. He was a true introvert, very calm, and extremely logical, contrasted with her extroverted personality that is a bit more emotional. He loved her with all he had in his own way. Until the very end, her presence was essential and brought him comfort. Love number 3. My father loved the outdoors. He was particularly fond of mountains and hiking when he was young. He often told us stories about riding bikes all day to a village outside Isfahan to go hiking and hunting. Accompanying his love of the outdoors was gardening. I remember when my brothers and I were little, we would get scolded if we trampled his flowers. Every time he would come home, he would first take about a 15-minute walk around the yard, visiting his plants and his flowers, before he came inside. At one point, he had over 100 rose bushes and an orchard full of fruits that he was very proud of. When we bought our house in California, during his first visit, he insisted that he plant 2 oranges, 1 lemon, and a lime tree in our front yard. I now have more citrus than I know what to do with. Until the very end, during our phone calls, he would ask me what I planted in my garden and give me advice on gardening. Or tell me that it would be great if we could purchase a piece of land so that we could have an orchard again. He would come and help. Until the very end, he loved sitting outside, listening to the birds, and just enjoying fresh air. Now to the 3 most important lessons I learned from my father that I have played a significant role in who I am and how I have chosen to live my life. My father valued education above all. He made sure not only that my mother finished her education, but that all 3 of his children had an opportunity for getting the best education possible. He understood that education is the road to economic mobility, but was more interested in the fact that education brought with it freedom to think independently and choose with knowledge and understanding one's own path. He definitely walked his own path. As much as he wanted me to be an MD like him, I chose the path of being an educator my entire career in order to give that same economic mobility and freedom to others, especially those who might not have ready opportunity or access. Lesson number 2. I remember this lesson from the age of 10 or 11. My dad often sat all 3 of us down to talk and to share wisdom. During one of these sessions, he stated that a man does not make promises he cannot keep. If a man makes a promise, he is honor-bound to keep the promise. He certainly embodied this lesson both in his commitment and oath he took as a medical doctor, but also in his marriage to my mother and commitments to his family. Yes, I know, I'm very obviously not a man, but I did not see why that lesson should not apply to me. Taking my commitments and promises seriously and making only those I can keep, both in my personal and professional life, has been a lesson my father left with me. Lesson number 3. This lesson also came when I was young, but it has been a hard one to learn and one that requires constant reminders and practice. Be careful what you say, he said, when you are angry, as you cannot later take back words spilled in anger. My father rarely got angry. When he did, the result was a calm, logical conversation. For me, this particular lesson has resulted in me writing and subsequently deleting many scathing emails throughout my career. Or taking a walk around a block, talking to myself like a lunatic until I have calmed down before I confront the person who has caused the outrage in a much calmer state. This particular lesson requires a lot of practice, sometimes daily, that one that I value a great deal, as words spoken in anger can easily destroy a valued relationship and hurt those I love most. One last memory to share today. When I was a little girl, I was a raging tomboy. No princess dresses for me. And on more than one occasion, did things that Batijun did not find acceptable. When they were really egregious, as a form of punishment and a show of her exasperation with me, Batijin would tell me I needed to talk to Baba after he came home. These are some of my fondest memories of my father. He would sit on the couch and ask me to come sit next to him. I generally ended up in his lap. We would then have a conversation. Not once did he raise his voice, chastise, or lay a hand on me. He was always logical, kind, curious, lovingly wanting to know what happened and explaining why I might not want to repeat this behavior. His lap was the safest place a little girl ought to be. I miss his love, and more than anything else, his calm energy. His loves, lessons, and the way he lived life are things that remain with me, shaping who I am as a person, a parent, and my professional life. Again, my brother Hoa.
Throughout his life, my dad saved a lot of lives, and he saw a lot of people die. But at age 94, my dad didn't want to die. He wanted to live. To the very end, he fought with everything he had, doing all he could to extend time with us. That's who he was, determined, fearlessly attached to life. As we remember him today, I'd like to reflect briefly on life itself and what it means to be born and to be alive, to give some perspective to our grief and to our gratitude for him. I like astronomy, and so when I think of large numbers, I tend to relate them to things in the universe. So the edge of our universe is about 96 billion light years from Earth, or so we think. Someone has actually computed roughly and estimated the total number of electrons in this space we call universe to be 10 to the power of 80. That's 10 with 80 zeros after it. I would like to relate this large number to us humans, Homo sapiens. We've been around on Earth for roughly 300,000 years. It's been estimated that around 100 billion people have ever lived on Earth. 8 billion living currently. That sounds like a huge number until you consider how many possible humans could exist. The human genome is composed of 3.2 billion DNA pairs arranged in 23 pairs of chromosomes. If we look at all the different combinations that you can create a human, that you can create tall people, short people, dark skin, all different variations you can imagine using these chromosomes. And when you calculate the possible combinations, the number of potential human beings is a staggering 10 to the power of 2.6 million. That's 10 with 2.6 million zeros after it. That's a stupendously large number. It's a number so large, it's incomprehensible. Which means, if you take all the 10 to the power of 80 electrons that are in the universe and take each electron and fit another universe, 10 to the power of 80 electrons, in that single electron, the total number of electrons will still be much smaller than the different types of humans that can be created. This means that our probability of being born precisely like we are is 1 out of 10 to the power of 26 million. To me, that's as good as 0 probability of being born. And yet, 100 billion of us have been here on Earth, including all of us in this room. Said differently, the number of people that haven't been born yet and could exist, there are many that will never be born. So the fact that you exist, that any of us are here, is nothing short of absolute miracle. We have each won a cosmic lottery against staggering odds. We are, all of us, among the lucky very few, not just to be alive, but to have ever been born at all. Every moment we waste in anger, despair, or distraction, every second we squander is a moment taken for granted. It's a disservice to the untold billions who will never get this chance to be born. We, the living, are not just lucky, we're sacred. And here's something else to remember. Only those who have lived get to die. Death is not just the end of life, it's proof that life happened. So even in sickness, even with struggle, cancer, kidney failure, brain aneurysm, pain, or any burden, if you're alive, you've already won. You're here. You mattered. You lived. Dad, I think of you this way. You were fully aware of the gift of life. You cherished it, you honored it, you didn't waste it. But Dad, if I were to ask you if you wanted to live forever, I believed you'd say yes, you wanted to live forever. But here's the thing. Imagine giving Mom a bouquet of plastic flowers. They never die. But they also never carry the same meaning. Mom would probably think you don't love her. Real flowers die, and that's why they're beautiful. Their impermanence demands attention. You look at them, you smell them, you appreciate them because they're only alive for a few days. And so it is with life. The knowledge that it will end one day gives it not only meaning, but urgency. It reminds us to live with purpose, to love fully, to be present, and to leave something behind that matters. Dad, your life had urgency, it had meaning, and it had beauty. You lived it better than most ever will. You lived for 94 wonderful years. Only 10% of human population today gets to live that long. And you were one of them. So now, as you rest, may you do so in peace, knowing that your life was not just long, but significant. You were one of the very lucky ones that was born and lived a full life. And all of us, we're all lucky to have had you. Next, I will have my brother Kian speak.
Wow. Hello, everyone. My My name is Djawdan. I am the youngest of three. And I would like to thank everyone for being here in this room and from around the country and around the world for my dad's celebration of life. I'd like to take a few minutes to honor and remember some of the qualities that made Peder Djawdan the man he was. You might hear some of the same, some of the same things, but maybe perhaps with a slightly different twist, because like Bulat said, we're all quite different, and we are all lucky to be here because we all see things slightly differently. Peder Djawdan had an interesting and a complex personality. He was complicated, but yet a simple man. Two aspects of his personality that stand out to me most was his, yes, he was passionate about medicine, but you can't be passionate about medicine if you're not passionate about learning, which was the underlying passion that he had to get through medicine. And his other personality quality was he had a lot of drive and grit, which some do, some don't, and was what got him through the very detailed story of his life that Poet gave from leaving Iran to the present day. Because as we all know, emigrating to a different country is a very challenging thing, especially, I wouldn't know, but especially after a world war, that the country that you're going to is not necessarily very well intact. Now, Minu mentioned that he was known by many by being an introvert. I don't necessarily agree with that. I think instead of an introvert, he was a cautious extrovert. He had opinions about everything. His opinions were very black and white, right or wrong. But that lack of the grayscale or the color scale worked for him. I think he knew that, and for that reason, in many settings, he did not share his opinions, or he seemed to be quiet. But for me, he actually helped me see that there is more than black and white. There's lots of different colors in this world, and you have to choose to see that for yourself. He had a sense of humor that if you spent enough time with him, you would see. One was that when his first grandchild, Samson, was about to be born, we were sitting at a meal, and he basically told us that he wants to find a different name for him to be called. He didn't want to be called Peder Bozorg or Opa, which was what Peder Bozorg was in German, or grandfather. So we're like, okay, fine. And a week, 10 days later, he informs us that he wants his grandkids to call him Baba Guli. And that was interesting. I really wanted to see if that would actually stick, and you know what? It did stick. They did call him Baba Guli, sometimes Bob Guli, but it kind of depended on who said it and when they said it. So there were countless direct and indirect lessons that he passed on as a father and as a good-hearted human that changed the direction of my life and others that he came in touch with. that did not involve any surgeries or medical perspective, if you will. And that was because he loved life. He loved engaging life. I remember Taminu's story on sitting on his lap. I was about 6 or 7, and being the last of 3, I was a very rambunctious little guy. Had a lot of energy as a child, and as a result, I got really excited really quick when I was a kid. And not only did I get excited, I got angry, and when things didn't go my way. Mother had spent time trying to correct that or fix that. And like Mina stated, when time came, the baton got passed to Djawdan, and this happened to me at this scenario. So I got to sit on his lap, and on his lap, like Mina said, very kind, listened. But when I think back, it was amazing that for a person who was in the operating room chronically and was getting called in, his life was very hectic when we were in Iran. But he was able to connect with a 6-7-year-old and cause a change in behavior that almost instantly stuck to a point that I don't know how he rationalized the kid, but he did, and I stopped having that particular behavior. A story that kind of goes hand in hand again with something Mina said. We at some point moved to Baltimore, and I was going to high school, and Qubat was going to university down the street from my high school. So for a couple of years, our routine was we got in the car and we commuted. So he dropped me off at school and went down the road to Loyola College, and on the way back home, same routine. In and around 1982, 83, Dad came to visit, and he had decided that he was going to take some medical board exams. So he had signed up and with Kaplan, which helps train medical students and doctors to go through some preparation for these exams. So he would go to Kaplan in Baltimore for 3 days, and 2 days out of the week he would come with us, and we would drop him off at Towson State University, which is now Towson University. So we would drop him off at 8 o'clock. He would literally go in the library, sit in the library, and study. Because now he had to learn the English language to a point that he could meet, understand, and take examinations in English. So he spent a lot of time studying. And I think it was on Tuesdays and Thursdays he would go to Towson. So that being said, we dropped him off, and he went to the library. We went off to school. On the way home, we got home, and we went upstairs, put our stuff down, came down, and Mother was like, "Why is your dad taking so long to come down?" And that was the moment that Bubba and I kind of looked at each other and said, "Oh, man, we forgot to pick him up." So, needless to say, that never happened again. But not because he got angry at us forgetting to pick him up. He didn't really care about that. What he did in that moment, he took that as a teaching moment and basically told us that, hey, if you make an agreement, i.e. picking me up after school, you should do that because people trust you to be doing a certain thing. So it was a sort of if you're taking responsibility from something as an adult, you should do it. And again, I'm going through some sort of life stories here that they're subtle, but at some point their exposures were not only one time, but some of these things occurred more than one time in slightly different formats. But if you didn't look for them, you wouldn't see them, and you would not learn from it. I remember I was applying for college, and when I went to this actual particular high school, I had only been here, I think, 3 or 4 years. Never spoke English in Iran, so I was learning as we were going along. And it was difficult for me as a high school student to assimilate, if you will. So it was a lot easier for me to excel at sports. And this particular school had a very good program in athletics, so I did. I excelled in 3 different athletic realms, and was really good at it. So when I came to apply to colleges and universities, I wasn't ranked, as you would, very high in this school, but because it was a prep school, it did still allow me to get into a university. But Dad sensed that I had some apprehensions and reservations, so again, he didn't sit me on his lap at this point because I was 18, 19, but he sat me down and he said, I kind of get that you have some reservations, and I said yes. So he goes, you're very good at sports, right? And I'm like, I'm good. He goes, well, how is it that you are able to do that? I said, well, we practiced a lot, so we prepared for whatever sport it was, whether it was soccer. 3 weeks before the season, we went through camp, and then every day, 2.5, 3 hours after school, we were playing. He goes, exactly. You spend a lot of time practicing. Now, again, being a teenager, and I was a little slow at that time, I didn't quite understand what his point was. So he finally had to come out and say, the mind and the brain work just like any other muscle you have. You need to put in the time to train it, and it will give you the results you want. And in my mind, sitting there at that moment, I'm like, it can't be that easy. It just can't be. But you know what? It was. I just had to put in the time. And when I went to college, I didn't have a helpful hand that helped prove that point to me, because there was a young man that came from Hong Kong, and this kid could sit in the library from 8 o'clock till 3:30 without going to the bathroom or going to eat food, and just read. And I could do that for 20 minutes. So between what Dad said and being exposed to this young man, I realized that, you know what, the mind is and the brain is like any other muscle. You just have to spend the time to get it strong and get it doing what you need to do. Now, One thing that Mino mentioned, which is true, I'm gonna actually forgo this because Mino's cutting my time off here. So, Pedar was a brilliant mind, demanding excellence from himself and everyone around him. As a neurosurgeon, he was known for his precision and focus. His dedication to his practice and patience mirrored his approach to life, which was very committed and unwavering. He imparted more to me than I perhaps realized at times. He gave me his work ethic, his fire, his standards, and his wit. Even his silence was instructive a lot of times if you paid close attention. Baba was a paradigm of calm and care, courage and determination, passion and love. His greedy nature never wavered as he faced life challenges head on with unwavering resolve and a tender heart. Today is not just a farewell. Today I say thank you. Thank you for your life you lived, for his teachings, and for the love he expressed in his unique way. Baba, I hope you knew how deeply I respected and loved you. I hope you felt seen and appreciated for all that you were. Your legacy lives on through me and in the hearts of everyone gathered here. As we celebrate his life today, let us be grateful for the moments we shared with him and the lasting impact he made. Lastly, I ran across a passage that really I felt puts who he was and how he affected people around him. So I'm going to start the passage, and his grandkids and granddaughter Shelby, who's going to be being fed through the internet, will help read this passage. The passage goes something to this effect. My dear son, daughter, wife, grandkids, and or my dear friends, you can do amazing things. Life can be tricky sometimes, like solving a big puzzle.
But I want you to remember how strong you are when things get tough. Take a deep breath and keep going. You are smart, kind, and brave.
Never let anyone make you doubt yourself, and always aim for what makes you happy. Your dreams are special, and they're worth chasing.
No matter how hard the road may seem, it's okay to make mistakes because they help us grow. What matters is that you learn from them and keep trying.
Believe in yourself, take risks, and know you have everything to succeed. Be proud of who you are, and follow your heart with courage.
Thank you, Shelby. Thank you for indulging us. We will now start with our poems and readings. We have one poem by a patient that was written in, I believe my aunt will translate, it was written in 1970. She will read the Farsi, and her granddaughter, Golzar Ijadi, will read the English version.
قبل از اینکه این شعر رو بخونم میخوام یه چیز کوچیک بگم. این شعر رو یکی از مریضای دکتر آقای محمد علی عالیپور مرغ ملکی در تاریخ 28 خرداد سال 1349 با خط خودش نوشته. اون زمان دکتر بدون اینکه حتی یه ریال بگیرن یه عمل جراحی سختی رو روی مغز این بیمار انجام داده بودن. بیمار پول نداشت ولی یه دل صاف و پر از احساس داشت. برای همین با تمام قلبش این شعر رو برای دکتر نوشت و به دکتر تقدیم کرد. برای من این شعر ساده اما از ته دل نشونه احترامیه که مردم به دکتر داشتن و هنوزم دارن. حالا با افتخار این شعر رو براتون میخونم. کن سلام ما قبول دکتر عالی مقام، حکمتت لازم به تقدیر است نزد خاص و عام. راضی از کردار و هم اخلاقتان ملت تمام، واقعا شایسته تمجید و لطف و احترام. نام نیکت مهدی و عنوان شهرت جاودان، ذکر خیرت منتشر باشد به هر جا در زبان. چون شدی وارد ز خارج بر محیط اصفهان، جمله مرزا از وجودت در رفاه و شادمان. لطفتان شامل به حال موسمندان است و بس، زیر دستان را ز هر قسمت پناه و دادرس. علم و معلومات تو پوشیده نی بر هیچ کس، می کنم دائم دعایت تا مرا باشد نفس. در طبابت حاذق و ماهر به هر کار آمدی، از عروق داخلی معروف و هوشیار آمدی. بالاخص جراح بر اعصاب استاد آمدی، بهر تبلیغ حقیقت خلق بسیار آمدی. هر مریضی را که دادی نسخه از بهر دوا، گرچه باشد درد و درمان صحت از امر خدا، لیک از فیض وجودت یافتند آنان شفا. چشم بد دور حسودت کور باد ای رهنما، از خدا دارم تمنا اقتدارت پایدار. بستگان و خاندانت کامران و برقرار، شد نصیبت حاصل توفیق جود و افتخار. باشد ابراز تشکر امتنان جان نثار. چون سلیمان کو توجه داشت خیل مور را، داده این دم نجات از رنج عالی پور را. نیست ما را استطاعت بودجه‌ای منظور را، هست بخشش از بزرگان خلق کن منشور را. این شعر همطور که شنیدین پر از احترام و عشق، از یه دل ساده که با قلبش حرف زده و برای من واقعا از 1000 لوح تقدیر قوی تر و ارزشمندتره، چون بی ادعاست، واقعی و عمیقه. دکتر جاودان از اون آدمایی بودن که فقط پزشک نبودن، ایشون یک انسان بود. مهربونی و بخششش توی همه دلها زنده است.
Before I read this poem, I'd like to share a brief note. This poem was written by one of the doctor's patients, Mr. Muhammad Ali Alipur Morgh Maliki, on June 18th, 1970, in his own handwriting. At the time, the doctor had performed a complex brain surgery on him without accepting even a single riyal in return. The patient had no money, but he had a heart full of sincerity and emotion. So, with all his love and gratitude, he wrote this poem and offered it to the doctor. To me, this poem, simple yet heartfelt, is a reflection of the deep respect people felt and still feel for the doctor. And now it is with honor that I share this poem with you. Accept our greetings, O noble doctor. Your wisdom is honored by both the elite and the common. All the people are pleased with your deeds and your character, truly worthy of praise, kindness, and respect. Your good name is Mehdi, and your last name, Djawdan, meaning eternal. Your memory is spoken of far and wide, since your return from abroad to the city of Isfahan. Patients have found comfort and joy in your presence. Your kindness has always been for the poor, a shelter and support for those in need. Your knowledge is known to all, and I pray for you always, as long as I breathe. In medicine, you are skilled, in every field adept, a gift that from within your spirit leapt, and thus in neurosurgery you're known as a master true. In spreading truth, your character shines through. To every patient you gave the right prescription. Though healing comes from God above, it was through your grace that many found relief. May envy stay far and evil eyes never touch you, O guide. From God I ask for your lasting strength. May your family and loved ones always prosper, and you have earned honor, success, and generosity. I offer you my deepest, most heartfelt thanks. Just as Solomon cared for even the smallest ants, so too have you brought relief to me, Alipur, in this very moment. Though I have no wealth or means to repay you, let the generosity of the great complete this gesture. As you just heard, this poem is full of love and respect, from the heart of a humble man who spoke with deep emotion. And to me, it is more meaningful than 1,000 plaques of recognition, because it is unpretentious but real. The doctor was one of those rare people who was more than just a physician. He was truly human, and his kindness and generosity still lives on in people's hearts.
خیلی به جامعه پزشکی و طب خدمت کرد. همه پزشکان خدمت میکنند، ولی دقتی که دکتر در کار داشتن از معاینه اولیه بالینی گرفته تا آخر معالجه و سلامتی مریض خیلی با دیگران تفاوت داشت. کار کرد، خدمت کرد، خدمت پزشکی کرد، شفای بیماران بود، خداوند رحمتش کنه. روحش شاد و فرزندان گلو، مینو، قباد، کیان و همسر مهربان و با وفایش قرین نشاط و سلامتی داشت.
من سوسن جاودان، اولین برادرزاده دکتر مهدی جاودان، به عموی عزیز خود افتخار می‌کنم و زندگی پرثمر ایشان را به خانواده جاودان و تمام بیماران ایشان و مردم عزیز ایران تبریک می‌گویم. دکتر جاودان در همه وقت دلشان برای مریضان خودشان می‌تپید و وظیفه خود می‌دانستند که برای آنان آماده باشند. برای من عمویی عزیز و مهربان با طبع شوخ بودند. داستان‌های از شرایط تحصیلات خود، دوران پزشکی خود با مردم مختلف تعریف می‌کردند و من از شنیدن آنها لذت می‌بردم و با خود فکر می‌کردم عمو جون باید این داستان‌ها را بنویسند و به صورت کتاب جمع‌آوری کنند. در سال گذشته به من می‌گفتند دلم می‌خواد برم ایران و محلی برای انجام عمل داشته باشم و مطبی بگیرم و مریض‌ها را آنجا ببینم. در این زمان دکتر جاودان در کنار ما نیستند، ولی عشقی که به خانوادهشان و خدمت به مردم و کارشان داشتند تا آخرین لحظه های عمرشان نمایان بود. با امید شکیبایی برای همسر ایشان بتی خانم و فرزندانشان مینو جان، قباد جان و کیان عزیز. من و همسرم آقا مصطفی و پسرانم دکتر پیمان و مهران به همه عزیزان تسلیت میگوییم. روحشان شاد.
سلام به همگی، آشنایان، دوستان، فامیل و همه کسانی که در این روز 49 دکتر عزیز شرکت کردند. به نام خدای مهربون بخشنده. این قافله قوم عجب می‌گذارد. مرگ یک حقیقته که نمیشه انکارش کرد. یه داستان تکراری برای همه آدم‌ها. یه روز میایم به این دنیا و یه روز باید بریم. هیچ کس نمیتونه از این مسیر فرار کنه. بالاخره نوبت ما هم میرسه. اما چیزی که واقعا مهمه اینه که توی این فاصله بین اومدن و رفتن چه اثری روی دلها و زندگی بقیه میذاری. چی از ما به جا میمونه؟ مهربونی، عشق، نیت پاک، کارهای خیر، چیزایی که خاطرش سالها توی ذهن آدمو میمونه بود، میشه توشه‌ای برای اون سفر بزرگ و همیشگی. دکتر عزیز ما که واقعا انسانی بزرگ، مهربان و بسیار ارزشمند بودن از بین ما رفتن. باید بگم که من خودم با چشمام دیدم که چطور برای مریضاشون، برای جامعه، برای خانواده و حتی برای من مثل یک پدر دلسوز و یک دکتر مسئول و فداکار بودن. برای دکتر نجات جون آدما از هر چیز دیگه مهم‌تر. دکتر دنبال تشکر قدردانی مادی نبودن. زندگیشون رو وقف بیمارانشون کرده بودن. با دل و جون کار میکردن برای سلامتی جان آدم‌ها. مثل یک نوری که زندگی خیلی ها رو روشن کرد و هیچ وقت خاموش نشد. یه چیزی اینجا حتما باید بگم. دکتر یه جراح مغز و اعصاب بودن و کارشون فوق‌العاده حساس و سخت. ولی با این حال من خودم می‌دیدم که چطور با جون و دل به مردم ساده و فقیر رسیدگی می‌کنن. خیلی از مریضاشون از دهات اطراف اصفهان می‌آمدن. آدمایی که واقعا پول نداشتن ولی دکتر حتی یه ریال ازشون نمی‌خواستن. یه بار یادم یه بیماری از یه ده خیلی دور اومده بود و بعد از یک عمل خیلی سخت که 7-8 ساعت طول کشید فقط یه سبد تخم مرغ برای دکتر هدیه بود. دکتر اون سبد تخم مرغ رو با عشق نشون من دادن و گفتن ببین این خیلی با ارزشه. این یعنی قدردانی واقعی. این نگاه، این قدر، چیزی که آدم هیچ وقت فراموش نمی‌کنه. حتی بعضی از همین بیمارانشون شعر گفتن براشون که یکی از اون شعرها برای من خیلی جالب. یه نفر به اسم محمد علی عالیپور مرغ ملکی این شعر رو نوشته بود تو سال 1349. چند بیت از اون شعر رو اینجا براتون میخونم چون واقعا از دل اومده. کن سلام ما قبول ای دکتر عالی مقام، حکمتت لازم به تقدیر است نزد خاص و عام. چون سلیمان کو توجه داشت خیل مور را، داده این دم نجات از رنج. آلیپور. نیست ما را استطاعت بودجه منظور را، هست بخشش از بزرگان، خلق کن منشور را. این شعرها، این سبد تخم مرغ، این لبخندها، اینا همون چیزایی هستن که از یه انسان میمونه. نه ثروت، نه شهرت، نه عنانی، فقط مهربونی، اثر و عشقی که توی دلها کاشته میشه. اینم باید بگم که دکتر فقط یه پزشک نبودن، یه همسر فوق‌العاده برای خواهرم بتی بودن، یه پدر بی‌نظیر برای مینو، قباد و کیان عزیزم. تمام تلاششون کردن که بچه‌هاشون انسان‌های خوبی باشن، با اخلاق و با صبر. و واقعا الان که به اونا نگاه میکنم میبینم خودشون یه نشونه روشن از همه اون زحماتی که در مادرشون هستن. حالا دفتر زندگی دکتر توی این دنیا بسته شده، ولی سفرشون تازه شروع شده، سفر ابدیش. یعنی چیزی که با خودشون بردن و اینجا به جا گذاشتن یه میراث بزرگ. محبت، خوبی، عشق به انسان‌ها، خدمت واقعی به دیگران. از خدا میخوام که به روحشون آرامش بده و به خانواده عزیزشون، بچه عزیزم، مینو، بابا، کیان، جف، افسانه، رنه و نوه‌های نازنینشون صبر و آرامش عطا کنه. روحشون شاد و یادشون همیشه با ما و با دلها مونه. این مراسم فقط مجلس یاد بود برای دکتر نیست. برای من یه زنگه، یه تذکره، برای من، برای ما، برای هممون. با خودم فکر میکنم مرگ پایان نیست، یه عبوره، یه حیات دیگه، یه تولد نو، اما در این حال یه یادآوریه که یه روزم نوبت من میرسه و اون وقت این سوالا به سراغم میاد. من توی مدت کوتاه فاصله بین تولد و مرگم چطور زندگی کردم؟ من کی هستم؟ چطور زندگی میکنم؟ چه اثری دارم؟ چه چیزی با خودم میبرم؟ آیا زندگیم فقط خوردن و خوابیدن و دکو از خود خونه ساختن بود یا بیشتر از اونه؟ آیا نباید یه لحظه واسم و نگاه کنم، با دقت و صداقت مرور کنم، ببینم چطور زندگی میکنم؟ اعمالم، رفتارم، نیتم چجوریه؟ با خودم میگم ای عزیز، وقتت رو تلف نکن. بدون که یه روز نوبت رفتن تو هم میرسه. پس هر روز به خودت نگاه کن، ببین داری چیکار میکنی، ببین حرفات و کارات چه اثری روی بقیه میذاره، ببین لحظات و صرف چه کاری و چه چیزی میکنی. بذار وقتی رفتی یه رد خوب از تو بمونه، یه خاطره شیرین سرشار از عشق و محبت، به یاد از مهربانی، عشق، خدمت. بذار جا پات توی دل آدم ها به خیر باقی بمونه که عشق راز جاودانگیه. مولانا فرموده زندگی بی عشق یعنی هیچ بودن در جهان. زنده باشی گر در او عشقی نباشد مرده ای. ای عزیز، سعیت به نکوکاری و احسان باشد که این مرکب عمر بی ادب می گذرد. یادی.
Those are all of the recordings that we have. Yesterday, my mother received a letter from a colleague that, of course, is in Farsi, which means I get to practice my reading. After I've read this, we have time for people who wish to speak. If you wish to speak, if you could line up over here, please, and I will call you to the podium. We have time for about 5 or 6 people and a 5-minute speak for those words for each. If no one wants to speak, that's fine too. You're not obligated. So let me read this letter and do my best. به نام خدا، با اندوهی عمیق و قلبی سرشار از تأثر در گذشت دوست و همکار گرامیم جناب دکتر مهدی جاودان، جراح برجسته مغز و اعصاب و نخستین جراح اعصاب در استان اصفهان را تسلیت عرض می‌کنم. نخستین بار با افتخار آشنایی به ایشان را در سال 1345 داشتم. زمانی که در آخرین سال دوره پزشکی در دانشگاه اصفهان مشغول به تحصیل بودم. دکتر جاودان در آن زمان پس از اتمام دوره تخصص خود از آلمان به وطن بازگشتند و فعالیت خود را در اصفهان آغاز کرده بودند. او پزشکی بود مهربان، پرتلاش و پیشگامی که حضورش نفسش ماندگار در تاریخ این You can tell I don't do this very often. دیار اینجا ایفا کرد. مرسی مانتا. خدمات علمی و انسانی ایشان در راه ارتقا و سطح دانش پزشکی و درمان بیماران فراموش نشدنی است و بی تردید جای خالی او برای همیشه در دل همکاران و جامعه پزشکی باقی خواهد ماند. این جانب این فقدان را به خانواده محترم ایشان تسلیت میگویم و از خداوند مهربان برای ایشان رحمت و مغفرت و برای بازماندگان صبر و آرامش مسئلت دارم. مرسی. روحش شاد و یادش گرامی. با احترام و تأثیر فراوان دکتر هوشمند مونی. هوشنگ مونی. Apologies for the mistakes. Anybody who wishes Hamid Jan